welcome to .NET Community Stand-Up Xamarin Edition. First Thursday of the month. Dave is already laughing at me.
I mean, somebody needs to take the pixie sticks away from you or whatever's going on over there.
A lot of energy.
You might be wondering, where's Mott's? Well, he has been doing some technological work with John Galloway, who's on the .NET community team as well, to put this community stand-up in a VM, which is right there. So it's on this computer, you're on this computer, I'm in Skype in two places.
We're coming live from the cloud.
VM doesn't die.
Yeah. Live from the cloud.
Live from the cloud. And this is cool because it enables people who aren't in Channel 9 or on Mott's Surface Book to run this without, things crashing, internet dying like last time. Anyways, yeah, John Galloway, holy cow, it actually worked. Yeah, it's working great. I'm excited. This is awesome. So bear with us. I have to switch between scenes, and that's a lot for me sometimes. So, it'll be all right. But same format you're used to. If you haven't been to a community stand-up before, I'm Maddie Legere. I'm going to go through our blogs, and I have my two, as Mott would say, best friends in the world on the line with me. If you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick.
Yeah, first thing, I guess I'll introduce myself since Jake is going to share his whole history with us. I hope.
Sure, yeah,
I'm looking forward to hearing the whole story. So David Ortnow, program manager with Xamarin and .NET, and Jake.
And my name is Jake Kirsch. I'm also a program manager on Xamarin. I actually was with this team last summer as well. At the time, I was an intern. And now I'm back as a full-time, started June 1st. Just finished my first month of work as a full-time. And this is actually my third time at Microsoft. I did 2 internships beforehand, once in Seattle working on .NET Core, and then another time in Boston working on Xamarin. And I came back to this team, which I love. So happy to be here.
Where did you go to school?
I just graduated from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
And what's your degree?
My degree is in information analysis and computer science.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. I have a BA in English, so I don't understand any of that stuff.
Who needs
there you
it?
go.
Because you write all those blogs, Dave. That's why your blogs are so good.
I all day long, if you want to know what I do, I write blogs, I write docs. I'm going to get a shirt that says one pager. Everybody wants a one pager.
I love it. I just put it all in PowerPoint. All right, let's jump in. I am going to copy pasta the list of URLs into all the chats. Bam, there you go. Same format as always. And then I'm going to go back into Skype. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to cross my fingers. And then I'm going to go into OBS over here and click presenter. Hopefully next time I don't have to talk you guys through this as I do it. If I don't talk out loud as I do this, I'm absolutely going to screw it up. So I'm going to check. Sick. That's up.
Yeah.
There's the list.
Looks good.
John, James, you guys are wizards. Thank you. All right. Oh my God, this is probably the hardest time I've had pairing, because I try to keep it around 10 blogs because there's other cool things going on besides me talking in this world. And this was probably the hardest time I've had paring blogs down so far because you all are stuck at home. I don't know. The blogging is out of control. It's very good. I'm very excited about it. And it was also Xamarin Month, which we'll talk about in a sec. As usual, though, virtual events in July. Jamie was so lovely to put this together, I think yesterday. And there's a conference coming up in 2 weeks called Xamarin Assemble. Avengers Assemble. Is that trademarked? Probably. And then a whole bunch of user groups, lots of great stuff. But the same thing as usual. There's, of course, our Xam streamers page. If you need your Xamarin fix outside of an event. So, and a .NET Standup. What's that? Spoiler alert, it's this. Great. Yeah. So join us at all these things. I did want to show, I'm not going to go through these because they're docs and that's boring, but our mobile customer advisory team, which is fabulous, has gone through and started doing some scenario-based documentation for us based on issues that they have customers run into when they're consulting. So if this is actually, I was actually in an email about this a few months ago, but using a Xamarin.Forms page in an iOS extension and how that works. So Alexi was nice enough to go and just write this into a doc. So now you can go ahead and follow through like his walkthrough that he built. And this is from, you know, people who are working on this code on customers or with customers recently. So it's really cool. And then there's another one Mike Parker did that is sending push notifications to Xamarin.Forms apps using Azure Notification Hubs via a backend service. So I think we've covered a lot of blogs that do something like this before, which really to me highlights the fact that there needs to be some kind of official tutorial about it, because you all have done it and told everyone else how to do it a zillion times. So we should probably just be like, yes, correct. So that's what this one is. And it's got all the steps, including testing, because we're good engineers. All right, let's see. Oh, this is this new Let's Create series. It's beautiful. There's a whole bunch of just like blogs and stuff that pop up. I actually have this one, I think, at the end. But there are, I believe, our videos. David, you're the one who sent me this link, right?
Yeah, this came to my attention yesterday, and so I went to look to see who was behind this, and it's a developer named Patrick. And I tell you, first of all, he's got the voice for it. So when you go up and watch the YouTube series, you're like, okay, great, I can listen to this, right? The other thing that I noticed, it's really well edited. There's not a bunch of dead air. He moves pretty quickly. And there's 10 videos in the series. I skimmed through the most recent one, and it looks like really good, solid content. So, and it was recommended by another Twitter follower who has been enjoying it. So if you're looking for some content to bone up on, you know, MVVM, C#, and all things Xamarin, I think it's a really good series to go check out. It has both the YouTube as well as this blog. And so there seems to be several ways you can engage with it. So it's relatively new. I think just kicked off within the last month, and he's already pumped out 10 videos. So check it out.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine how quickly he must be putting this together, because even the Xamarin.Forms 101s.
We've done this before, right? Yeah, you know what it takes.
5-minute Xamarin.Forms 101s. If I am not prepared fully, I have spent like an hour or two on one of those before, locked alone in a room, and Mods has come in and like checked on me and been like, "Are you okay?" No, I'm fine. Xamarin Month happened this month. Very exciting. Luis has actually organized these quite a few times in the past. I think this is the second Xamarin Month, but there was a Xamarin UI July last year, which I think Steven, I don't know, everyone's great. But Luis has been kind of spearheading this month idea, and it's themed. So this one was on code snippets. Yeah, no, I'm never going to sub to the notifications. Never. I can't, principal. As much as I love you, I just follow you on Twitter. That's my notification. But this is the kind of catch-all for all the blogs that came out this month. And so you might see some familiar faces. What I could do was just talk about all of these as my 30 blogs of today, but I will not do that. I did want to call out Luis's personal collection. I thought was really good. Goodbye ads. Luis, I love you, but no ads, please. I'm giving you enough blog traffic right now. Can't you just like whitelist my MAC address?
There you go. You should work that out.
That's the solution.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Luis's personal collection of C# snippets I thought was really good. It was simple. It was pretty extensive. And the nice thing is at the end, he also tells you how to use the snippet designer, which is an extension for Visual Studio. So it can help you kind of make fancier snippets or make it easier to make fancy snippets, whatever it is. This is Hussain's entry for Xamarin Month. I haven't put a Hussain blog on here in a little bit, and this was a really good one. So I was like, okay, of all the ones to highlight from Xamarin Month, I think this one's pretty good, because he also goes through snippets, how to create them, and then C# and XAML examples, including scroll grid. But he's going to have to update this one. Another reason I wanted to put this in here, because Jake's going to tell you why at the end of this.
You might have heard about it already, but we'll walk through it again.
Spoilers. Yes. And Dave went and made a GitHub repo because he's extra. He can't just write a blog like everybody else. but it's got all these shell code snippets, which is very exciting. I don't know if you can see him. Oh yeah, you can't because it's just my face. He's laughing. He thought it was funny.
Well, here's the thing with my blog. My blog, I have a really good track record of not posting to it. So, why ruin that now? Go ahead and just put it up on GitHub. The code's right there, the blog. I think it works out well. I may just make this my personal blogging strategy moving forward.
That makes sense. That's not a bad idea. This one is particularly nice because it's got all the shell stuff. So when you don't make a shell app by default and then you want to turn it into shell and then you're like, oh my God, what does an app shell look like? It does this. Mm-hmm. All these things. All right. Blogs time. Blog. Charlene had worked on this. It's just the transition, 2-card transition control, but I think the UI design is beautiful and I think it's so smooth. Mm-hmm. So if you're familiar with zamgirl.com or Charlene's blog, she's really good about the putting in the GitHub and everything and the links, and it's pretty easy to follow. These are usually my go-tos when I need to follow like a blog. Charlene's are usually really good. But it's running in iOS and Android and looking good.
Yeah, that transition reminds me of two other ones. It's the Wallet app on iOS, but also the Alexa app. If you have an Alexa and you're managing that through your phone. And it's one of the one of the examples that I provided when we first started working on carousel view. So the same vertical carousel that you should be able to achieve with carousel view, you can take what Charlene has done here in terms of transitions and make it look really, really slick. So I'm looking forward to seeing more people take advantage of carousel and kind of blend what Charlene's done here.
Yeah, and she's not using like super complicated animation, so I think that's really
very straightforward. Yeah, very straightforward.
Yeah,
I love it.
Big fan. All right, this is on Ask Zammy, replicating schedule UI. So I'm all about, if you've been on these community stand-ups before, good looking UI. Looks the same on both platforms, not too difficult. That's pretty much, those are my guiding tenets. And Leah Maurice did that amazing here. So I believe this is mostly XAML too, which I thought was really cool. But she shows you how to make this like timeline down the side here using a collection view. And everything else, these are like the frames on the side here. And it's on GitHub. It's super fancy. I like it. All right. This came to my attention via the Let's Create series blog thing, I think. No, yes, it was this one. I'm pretty sure. Anyways, it's making circular progress bars using Skia Sharp. And I put this up here because A, this is cool. Skia Sharp is great. But B, what Jake is going to talk about in a little bit is an alternate to doing this. Spoiler alert, it's shapes, and people have already started using it. It's very exciting. So Skia Sharp is super powerful. It's not going anywhere. It's amazing. But we do have a first-party Xamarin.Forms shape API now. And Daniel here went and did this rating service. And then Marco here did this background.
I didn't see that one.
It's so cool. I know. Hopefully I'm not stealing any of Jake's samples. Yes, I'm not going to give away anything else. We're going to let David go through the PRs, and then Jake is going to show you all of the glory in Xamarin.Forms 4.7. So
there's a lot.
All right, I'm going to switch back to people. No, I have to stop sharing my screen first. Hold on. Stop sharing. Switch back to people. Nice. And then David, let me know when you're ready to roll with your desktop.
I will go ahead and share my, let's see, other monitor. Start sharing. See, I narrate my, well.
Nice.
So I should be sharing now, am I not? Am I sharing?
Yeah, I think I see it. I think this is good.
Okay, cool. I have red stuff around it. So I saw a comment in the YouTube chat to zoom in. So I think that this is big enough, but I'll go ahead and I'll bump it up one more. I have to actually select the window. bump it up one more. So I wanted to highlight, first of all, we were able to work with GitHub and get into the discussions preview. So on both the Xamarin.Forms repository and the .NET MAUI repository, we have added discussions. Because what we've seen is that there are a lot of issues that get opened to have conversations or to propose general ideas, and they really need to be fleshed out and discussed, hence the discussions. And what's really nice about discussions, and these won't exemplify this yet because these were converted from issues over to discussions. But when you get into discussions, you can go down and start, there's some threading, what you would be used to from the Xamarin.Forms, for example. So highly recommend, please take advantage of these open discussions. Certainly having the Xamarin.Forms still there and still active is great, but this may be a good alternative if you want to talk about more of the technical bits of the project, the strategy, the roadmap, things like that. So please take advantage of this, because we also want to be giving feedback to the GitHub team to let them know how that's working out, what can we improve, things like that. Cool. Always love to be on the bleeding edge of what we can deliver for our community. So last week, you may have heard Apple had WWDC. And so we, of course, were in rapt attention, as everybody who is doing any iOS or Apple ecosystem development were. And so we are making our plans and working already on creating bindings. So we call this the summer of Xcode, right? In June, Apple makes all their big announcements, and you as .NET developers targeting iOS want to know, okay, great. When can I get my hands on these bits to do the .NET side of things? And so this is what you can expect in terms of release schedule. The first release of Xcode 12, which is the version for iOS 14, the first round of bindings takes longer, but then subsequent releases from Apple will be churned out more rapidly. All of this is, couched in the, hey, we don't know exactly what Apple is going to ship and when they're going to ship it. And until you get into the deep bowels of these bindings, you don't know what you're going to find. But in general, the way this has gone, all this is spelled out here on the GitHub for macOS. So this is Xamarin/Xamarin-Mac which is in the URL list that Maddie shared. So highly recommend, if this is of interest to you, to track that really closely. This will give you the information about that. And then we have some meta issues. The iOS team does a great job of posting kind of what they're thinking about and where things are going. We're trying to be as transparent as we can. There are plenty of unknowns, of course, because Apple announces, and then we need to look into it more in depth. But in terms of like what we heard from Apple last week, Xcode 12, the major new features are app clips. These are they're functional apps, but they are just the really fast bits you need to be able to do something quickly. So I think a good example would be a restaurant. We don't go out to too many restaurants now, but when you do go to a restaurant, you find that you're usually snapping a QR code, and then that takes you to a mobile website with a menu that you may or may not be able to read. Other examples that I think Apple even shared were a bike share. You don't want to have to download a full featured app just to be able to get on your way. And so app clips is kind of that. And I know that Android has their fast apps, I think is what maybe there's another term for it. So we're looking at what we can do there. You see the status for that, for macOS, Apple Silicon, widgets, all these things, they're marked as in consideration. And so what that means is we are doing our due diligence to investigate what's it going to take to deliver that, and what's that experience going to look like. We want to make sure that we can do all, not just the SDK work, but all of the tooling. And Maddie's wonderful team of tooling engineers, what are we asking from them in terms of debugging experience and things like that. So as we know more, we'll be updating these pages. And if you really, really want to go deep on it, there are binding statuses in the wiki. Some of you may actually be contributors to the bindings. You can go over here and find out crazy details, very in depth, and you can see across all the major targets, what are the bindings, what's the status, This is a bit of, you kind of need to know how binding tracking works, and Chris Hammonds and the iOS team will help kind of explain this if you want to know more. But this will tell you kind of all the in-depth stuff, and if you want to get plugged into that, you certainly can. All contributions are welcome. And then we have another meta issue I wanted to call attention to, because prior to and still ongoing, prior to WWDC, we've been obviously feverishly working on .NET 6, because that's the next major release for the Xamarin workloads, Android, iOS, Xamarin.Forms, etc. And this is where .NET MAUI gets introduced. This is where iOS and Android are full-fledged, core pieces of .NET 6. Xamarin Essentials is part of .NET 6 and will be in the system namespace. .NET MAUI will be in the system namespace. So that's the next major wave for us, shipping in November of 2021, but we're going to be branching and start previewing those things late this year, first of next year. So what can you expect from that? What's going to be included? All of that information we will be updating here. And you can see some of these things, watchOS in consideration. Is that something that needs to be in the very first release? Of course, if you're doing watchOS, you're going to feel very passionately that it does. But we have to prioritize the work and make sure that we're delivering the most impactful things. Catalyst, what are we thinking on Catalyst? Where are we going to go with that? We've been having a lot of more in-depth technical discussions on that. So as we have more information to share with you, and if you want to reach out and discuss it with us, please do. We're not trying to have conversations behind closed doors. We want to be as open as we possibly can. But of course, engineering and teams, we have meetings, right? So, all right. So that's enough kind of housekeeping stuff. Let's look at some of the pull requests that we have on Xamarin.Forms. And actually, even having said that, I'm reminded that I wanted to go to the wiki first. So in the Xamarin.Forms wiki, we have our feature roadmap. And this is where you can find information on what's coming up, what features are on the list to be shipping from the core team that are planned. That doesn't mean that those are the only things that are going to be shipping, because we also have, of course, pull requests from you. So, I actually didn't publish this. Give me just a second, and I will publish this live on the community stand-up. Maybe. Unless I closed all my browsers.
Anywhere else, folks?
Well, I think I closed all my browsers, so I can't.
Oh.
Yeah. Look at what I did. But I can retype it up, and I'll post it after the at stand-up. What I wanted to call attention to is, so in July, August, you'll start seeing 4.8. We do have a P1 cut for that now, a preview one, and that will be coming soon. And really the major thing in there, new thing, is going to be Gradient Brush, which missed 4.7 by the skin of our teeth, because we wanted to make sure that we had a better UWP support. Honest is what held that up. So that's going to be coming in 4.8, and then the majority of the rest of 4.8 is going to be working towards stabilizing. And this is a question from the chat: stabilizing all of the experimental things like swipe view and carousel view and those controls. And then we're working almost exclusively right now, the rest of the team, on quality improvements, bug fixes. So between 4.8 and 5.0, that's really where the majority of that work is going to go. We're going to be stabilizing and shipping as stable all these things. You can see that tab bar and app bar, tab view and app bar have been cut from the releases so that we can make time to do these things. They're still on the farther future roadmap, but in terms of what we can ship by 5.0, we want to make sure it's a really stable release, and it's a good cutting over point for .NET MAUI. And so this is what I wanted to mention about .NET MAUI really quick, is that in order to make this transition, we need to be very clear on how we're going to manage feature pull requests moving forward. So on July 15th, we're setting a milestone for a feature pull request freeze. And so what we mean by that is if you want a pull request that is introducing new features, new controls or whatever, into Xamarin.Forms, then it needs to be in by July 15th. There may be exceptions. We can have conversations about that, but we're looking at approximately 46 community contributed feature pull requests right now that we want to make sure we have time to give them the attention that they deserve between July 15th and Xamarin.Forms 5 going stable in September. So I will be putting that notice up here to set that milestone and make it clear. Now, bug fixes, bring them. There's no restriction on bug fixes whatsoever, but I'm trying to be very clear on some of the dates that we need to really be thinking about so that we can make a smooth transition and keep these repositories in sync. All right. Didn't think I was going to talk about that for so long, but there we go. Maddie's smiling in the Skype over here. She's not disapproving too greatly. Okay. So
you got me hooked.
I got you hooked. You're cool. All right. So Pedro Jesus has introduced a pull request for adding current page to shell. So when you are in shell, sometimes you want to know not just what your current navigation status is, but you actually want a reference to the current page that's presented. So proposing an introduction of this. It hasn't received reviews yet. I don't know, status, how this thing looks, but if you have found that you are looking for and needing this, please come let us know that this is useful to you, or if you have concerns about it. A lot of me bringing these pull requests up are both to celebrate the work of our contributors, but also to encourage the discussion. Let's see here, another one from Pedro Jesus, right? Yes. Cool. Implementing line break mode on the button. So this is a pull request that was introduced previously, but as he notes here, it was a very old PR, painful to do a rebase. So, hey, here's a fresh pull request. This may be something we'll need to do with pull requests that don't, for any reason, make it into Xamarin.Forms 5. But yeah, so a really good, useful one. So I love this. Anytime you introduce a change and you want to show us how it actually works, do that screen capture. Love it. So yeah, if you have the need for, and I believe the button at the top there is the native button, and the button at the bottom is the material design button. You can the all caps kind of gives that away that it's material design. All right. Next up, Peter Foot has introduced pass-through automation properties for Xamarin.Forms. And the reason this is really, really important and useful is that it introduces the ability to do screen reader support for the WPF backend. If you're not familiar with the WPF backend, a couple of cool things about it. First of all, it's completely community contributed. We didn't do this. So this is you saying, hey, we want WPF support. The other really cool thing is that it now runs on .NET Core, and the control gallery I noticed also now runs on .NET Core. So if you're wanting to run the control gallery, which is our kind of our test harness within Xamarin.Forms, you can check that out. Runs on WPF. So thank you, Peter, for this. This is really cool, and this one's already been merged. It's already in. So always loving to see the improvements for accessibility. This one from contributor whose name I apologize, I can't even try, but awesome contribution from Bangalore. Android editor and entry, disable the automatic keyboard dismiss. And so this is an interesting one that I think deserves some looking at and some conversation. So there are cases where you've got, I think the example that he provides here is, and I don't think there's any pictures, but the example provided is, hey, I've got a chat UI, and I've sent my chat message, but I don't want the keyboard to go away. And right now, by default on Android, when you touch outside of the keyboard or you touch outside of the entry or the editor, the keyboard automatically dismisses. So it would be nice to have a way to opt out of that automatic behavior. It seems to make sense to me. I don't know if I really like a really, really long name like dismiss keyboard on outside tap property. It's very descriptive, but it makes me feel very Objective-C. So I don't know. Naming is hard. Naming is hard. All right, a couple more. So this one is for Mac OS. And, I've been doing a lot of analysis on where the code changes are in our project, what platforms are most being updated. And Mac OS and WPF and UWP tend to continually get pull requests from the community. They are actively being used and supported, which I think is really cool and interesting. Certainly not to the level of Android and iOS, but the work is there. Open source for the win. So this one is, hey, I've got a Mac OS slider and I want to rotate it. So here's the before, just the horizontal. And hey, look at that, vertical scroll. So yeah, an interesting one. Nice addition to Mac OS, which kind of reminds me, I think we actually now have embedded font support for all the desktops. It could be wrong. It might be one that's missing out, but it's nice to see that the embedded font support, which I use the heck out of. I use it in my login sample here. It's so nice to be able just to drop a font in one place and use it everywhere. So, all right. And last one is a bug fix. So invalid sizes when using data template selectors on the iOS collection view. And just want to have a nice shout out here for Brian and for anybody who is contributing bug fixes. Features are cool, features are fun, features make it into blogs, but it's the bug fixes, the quality improvements that really make quality of life so much better. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I am done with pull requests. I want to know, Jake, what the heck did we ship in 4.7?
Yeah,
Do you
of
know?
course.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Maddie.
I have a general idea.
3 people's face view. So Jake, you let me know when you're ready for me to switch back to that view with you.
Give me 2 seconds. Let me just pull this up.
Take your time. Quit your Slack. Quit your Outlook.
Oh, I should do that.
Tabs.
Just did both those things. It's okay. Yeah, I'm ready actually.
All right, here we go. And we do have one question in the chat that's interesting. Will Xamarin Mac work with Apple Silicon? Yeah, we're figuring it out. I mean, it's Xamarin Mac. It's got to work on Macs, right? That's the dream. But we don't have our hands on any silicon yet, so we'll see how much work it's going to take.
Hopefully.
Yeah, it's being investigated for sure. The engineering team is all over that one. And right now, there's no known blockers that would prevent us from doing it. So, yeah.
Yep.
And I think you saw Apple made a pull request to Mono.
Yeah.
So the Mono team has been reviewing that pull request and reviewing it. And so, yeah, all signs point to good. Jake, take it away.
Yeah, cool. Let me start off by sharing my screen with this. Can you guys see this?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. So yeah, I'll just do a pretty quick walkthrough of Xamarin.Forms 4.7, the releases that we had, and some really cool stuff that we've seen in the community that's come from 4.7 already, which released a week or two ago. So we've seen a lot of really quick, rapid development from this. So the first thing is simplifying the grid and column definitions. This was something we'd been hearing a lot of requests for, and we were able to get in to Xamarin 4.7, and we've had a lot of really positive feedback. I actually really like this because it just takes your XAML and compresses it a lot. So you don't need 15 lines, 16 lines to define a grid. You can do it in 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shout out to Morton for proposing it.
Yeah, right on. It's very, very satisfying to go through my code and just do this and just see the file shrink. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, definitely makes the XAML look a lot nicer, a lot easier to read. And honestly, I think it's a lot easier to teach this to people as well. It's easy to teach this definition of grid and column to people rather than having it so separated.
Yep.
Yeah, so really great, simple solution. The second thing is multi-bindings. So this was really cool to work on. It essentially lets people combine any bindings they have, do some calculations in the background, and then spit out a final evaluation of them. The example I kind of have on the screen right now is connecting strings together. So inputting a first, middle, and last name, and then returning the entire string or all of the strings together as a single string. One other thing I actually wanted to highlight from this was this converter that came out of the community. If I can get there. There we go. So it's a logical expression converter. And this was really cool to see, really the first example of multi-bindings that I had seen come out of the community. And this tickles the electrical engineer in me, actually. What it does is you'll receive multiple bindings that are booleans, and then you'll feed it a multi-binding converter, and it'll be whatever logic gate you want, whether it be and, NAND, or all of them, and it'll return the following value from it. So this is really cool. I think we're going to start to see actually probably this example come up in different people's applications. This was really cool to see. One other thing I do want to say really quick is if you have examples of multi-bindings that you're working on, please send them to me. I want to make a collection of all multi-bindings that people have been developing in the community, and I'll share them out to everyone. So yeah, multi-bindings, a really, really great release. The third thing, and this was huge, is the Shapes and Paths update to Xamarin 4.7. To me, this is really cool because it really just gives full control of the UI to our developers. You can really make your application look however you want it to. Dave actually created the example you can see on the right here, this simple login page, and I think this is like a very classy, sophisticated example. One thing that I really like about it is actually the photo itself is an example of shapes. He used the ellipse to actually clip the photo and make it the right shape that he wanted. And I think we're going to start seeing that in a lot of applications as well. Dave, do you have anything to add?
No, depending on how long you go, I could try to share some of the code over here and walk through it. So
yeah, let me walk through a few other examples, but there probably will be time at the end. So I wanted to walk through a few other blogs because we've seen a lot of really, really great examples of shapes being used within Xamarin.Forms. So here is Javier Suarez, who actually created shapes. He works at Microsoft with us, and he kind of walks through how he takes the SVG that he's created of an example and then converts it to XAML and shows you the result. He also suggests a tool to draw SVGs and then port them over to your XAML. So if you're having any issues trying to just through your code develop these shapes and these tools, really strongly suggest using a tool like Blend to develop these shapes and these images that you want. Another really cool one was the Dark Store application. We saw this as a community contribution, and I actually I downloaded it. So let me see if I can pull up the emulator here.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was really cool to see. You can see there's a lot of different shapes in here. Let me see if I can pull up or if I can click on. There we go. You can see the actual bar around here is a unique shape as well. And you move it around. A lot of these things pop out, and there's really beautiful detail to it. Yeah, really cool example of shapes being ported into someone's application within weeks of it getting released. So this was really great to see.
Yeah, and I think one of the key advantages to this is that there's no additional weight to your projects when you ship this. So whereas Skia Sharp, which is awesome and will continue to be widely used, while that adds megabytes to your APK, your IPA, IPA. That started to sound weird when I said it, but this doesn't, and so I think that's really cool. And it's, of course, it's a first-class API within Xamarin.Forms.
Yeah. There's a few others that I'll walk through really quick. This is a long tutorial of creating an entire application using shapes within Xamarin.Forms. I like this. This is a really in-depth tutorial if you want just like a clear walkthrough of, somehow ran into an ad, of how to develop shapes within Xamarin.Forms. So I would suggest looking at that. This one is kind of the opposite. It's a really short walkthrough, but I like it because he starts off with the completed app, and you can see from the beginning that the actual shape is pretty dynamic. So this bar up here changes when he flips the phone. And so this kind of shows that the shapes that people develop can actually be dynamic to the applications and how the applications can change. So that's been really cool to see. And then lastly is one more walkthrough that I wanted to just show. which was this walkthrough of creating an extremely elegant login page. Again, 15-minute video, so we're not going to walk through the entire thing. But even just scanning through here from the beginning, we can kind of watch up here, and we can see the development of the app using shapes. And as the developer adds more and more to it, and I'm continually running into ads. So I'm going to stop there with shapes. But again, if you have any other community contributions, please send them to me. And I'll start collecting and make a repository of all different examples of shapes within Forms.
Ooh, very nice.
Lastly is an update to light and dark mode within Xamarin.Forms. So we had released this as experimental and saw that there were improvements to be seen. So just want to really quickly walk through a few things with it. The first thing is the user app theme. So what this does is it lets you bind a light and dark resource, and you can define what those colors are. And then through your application, you can actually set whether you want it to be using light mode or dark mode. The other nice thing is you can kind of see up here, you can set it to use the device settings, which means it'll default to whatever your device is currently set to. So if your device automatically turns to dark mode, your app will also turn to dark mode. If your device switches to light mode, your app can turn to light mode. So yeah, we're really hoping to just give full control back over to developers with this. Make it so that if you want to be using the dark mode of your app, you can. If you want to use the light mode of it, you're welcome to do that as well. Or if you want to leave control to your operating system, you can give up control. And those were really the 4 major highlights from Xamarin.Forms 4.7. There are a lot of other small things. So if you want to see more, please go to aka.ms/Xamarin.Forms-4.7. And we have all of the release notes there. So yeah, looking forward to feedback for it.
Nice. Good job.
Exciting. Nice work.
Well, we've got a few minutes left. Maddie, would you mind if I shared some code?
Of course. Well, I wouldn't mind.
Good recovery.
Oh, you have to share now and take it over.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a little fancy cheating here. I am going to share my desktop, and then I'm going to switch my OBS to share my other desktop. So I'm sharing a desktop through OBS. Can you see it, Maddie? Does it look okay?
The best part is the hexagon or the Xamarin with your face in it is covered by your face and my face right now in the stream. So you just see the top. You see your hair in the Xamarin, but nothing else. So
it looks fine over here. All right, but if you can see the code and everything, then I'll just speak to the code. All right, cool. All right, I need to move my other keyboard and get my other computer over here. So what I wanted to talk about or show real quick is I made some plus updates to the login view or the login shape sample, which is in the blog. Jake just showed it, and I will push these things. But I went ahead and just very quickly added some of these things to add the app theme binding support. So dark and light, super easy to add. And of course it has a fallback as well, you would hope. So I could have said default and then thrown a default in there. And so I did that. I applied it to styles as well, because I have a couple of labels and a couple of entries here. And just to show you this working, if you don't know this little trick, in the Apple simulator, you can do Command-Shift-A, and that will toggle light and dark mode. Check that out, right? I'm watching the delay on YouTube.
Whoa.
So I was really happy just how stinking easy that was. And to show you a couple of other things here, here is that image, which is my mug up there at the top with my daughter peeking over my shoulder. People always ask me, what is that over your shoulder? And so I pulled that off of the blog. I'm loading that into the image, and then I am clipping it right here. And so it's as simple as give me an ellipse. Here's the center and then the radius. And of course, you see all those numbers are the same, and makes it super, super easy. You can use any shape and it will work. And it's not just for images. It works pretty much on any control. So any layout, any other control you want to do. Another cool thing, and I wasn't actually sure this was going to work. I don't know why I doubted it. But the path that is the background of this login shape here, this kind of curved corners and the bottom here, that background is all this path. And so I've actually used this as well, so that the app theme binding is generating the color for the fill. And as I toggle back and forth between that, you can see that the background goes from the dark gray to the white. Isn't that nice? Is it nice? I don't know. Is it nice?
That's nice.
I want an amen is what I want.
I would say that's nice.
I'm pretty excited about it.
That's awesome.
I think it's really cool. You can see, of course, I've got my row definitions in line here, saving me precious lines of code, although this is a wasted line. Let's fix that. You can see I've got some squiggles, so updates are coming to the editor to make those squiggles go away, right, Maddie?
Yes.
I don't know why I have squiggles. This is what happens when we ship cool new things.
You should.
Now they are.
Now they're going away.
We can't keep up.
It is a little tricky when we're shipping every 6 weeks new stable releases with features in them. And one little thing, you may be asking, okay, you've got these paths. Where did you get this stuff? There are some great, as Jake mentioned, there's so many samples being pumped out right now showing how shapes and paths are so useful. You'll find some really good tips and tricks. I think Javier Suarez Ruiz just posted a blog post this week where he talks about apps that he has found really, really useful. What you can do is you can just go into an SVG, any SVG, and open it up, and you'll find path data in there for the things that you're wanting to do. You can also copy paths directly out of a lot of design tools like Sketch, like Figma, and things like that, Illustrator as well. And then you just paste that path data in here. You may need to tweak it and kind of learn a little bit of what the magic numbers all mean. But for the most part, it's a very straight, easy transition. Actually, the one that I thought was really interesting is Javier shared that Blend is a good solution for this. I haven't used Blend in so long that it was not on my radar. And I use primarily Figma and Sketch. So anyway, that's really all I wanted to show. A couple of plus updates to this sample. I'll go ahead and push this stuff. Everybody can play around with it. Pretty exciting, I think. Super useful. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Maddie.
Boop. All right. Boop. Back to this.
Sound effects with the mouth. We know what that's all about.
Uh-oh. I still see your screen.
I definitely stopped sharing.
Oh, no, I know you did. Because on this Skype. No, wait.
Oh, I know why. It's because I just need to switch to this. I also, by the way, I do have my pants cam working.
Oh, beautiful.
So.
No, this is Jake's first pants cam.
Oh, you've never seen?
I didn't know that was a
first
thing.
pants cam.
I should have warned you. I should have warned you that was coming. I apologize.
Oh my goodness gracious. All right.
Initiation by fire.
I was telling Dave that I wear like the same pajama shorts every day. So if I had a pants cam, it would be so uninteresting. At least he changes his pants,
You've outed yourself for what your attire is, and people are going to be like, "Oh, I would have." Just keep it a mystery. Keep it a mystery.
Yeah, they're great. All right. Well, we have a few minutes. The chat has been lit, to say the least. I have seen a bunch of questions come through, so let me see if I can try and pick some out. Boop, boop, boo. Off-topic question, what mic, light, and broadcasting software you use? Nice. That's always on topic with this team. James is the pro at this, James Montemagno. But I have the Elgato key lights, the full-size one. I have two. They're beautiful. This is a Blackout Spark mic by Blue. And we're using OBS, plain old OBS for streaming. And Restream, which is what takes this one stream from OBS and spits it to both YouTube's, Xamarin and Visual Studio, and then Twitch. And right now, we're also streaming to Mixer for just this last one.
Nice. What do you got, Jake?
Yeah, what do you have, Jake?
I'm rocking the MacBook 16-inch, with the built-in camera and the light from the window near me.
Yeah. We need to teach you how to use the expense tool.
I know Jake started June 1st, right? June 1st?
Yeah, June 1st. A month and a day ago.
We were lucky to have him in the office in Boston last summer, but he has been totally remote. He got his laptop mailed to him by Chris Hardy. And I brought my keyboard and mouse home so I could drop it over to Jake at his apartment when he came to Boston, but then his lease fell through because the apartment couldn't get inspected in time. And now I have like 5 keyboards in my closet, and Jake just has his Mac, and it's a mess.
Oh, it's great.
Happy everybody. We're not doing it any better here. So.
Jake, you've got a question in the chat that I think would be good. What advice can you give to someone who is graduating with a CS degree August 1st?
Well, congratulations.
Wow, yeah, congratulations on graduating. That's awesome.
Man, the biggest advice I would give is just keep developing and keep publishing. Like it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to work, if you want to work at a big company, if you want to work at a startup, having a portfolio and being able to show not only that you have an interest in coding and in technology, but that you actually develop. I found that really, really useful, and it kept my skills sharp. So if there's any advice, it's keep developing, keep your portfolio up. Sorry, that's some real advice, but.
Well, Maddie, what's your advice? Because you're not too far out of university.
You're right. I just had my 2-year Xamarin.Forms a couple weeks ago. So, what is my advice? Well, for me, it was a lot of I know exactly what I want to do. And I would start doing that thing, and then I'd hate it, and I switched, and then I was like, well, now I know exactly what I want to do. And software is so, there's so many, I'm sure you all know, there are so many different jobs in software. You can be a software engineer at a otherwise not software company. You can be someone at a tech company. You can do the startup thing. You can do consulting. You can do PM, which is what I ended up doing. There's a bajillion things. So my best advice is don't think that you know what you want to do, because you probably don't, and then you're going to try it and be all mad that you planned for what you didn't want to do. I thought I was going to go work in GPU acceleration and high performance computing, and I could not be further from that. So I said, yeah, I am so focused because I'm trying to read the chat and also make sure this thing doesn't fall asleep, because I'm on Big Sur, and my amphetamine plugin on Mac has not worked well with it. So it keeps your Mac alive. It's like a coffee cup. You click it, and then your Mac doesn't go to sleep. All right. Can you scale paths?
You can scale paths. And I think one of the samples, Jake, that you showed at least it reacting to the screen. And I think there's a couple of tricks that you can use depending on what your use case is. So what I have seen some applications do is you have a path that is wider than the view needs when it's in portrait, but is the right size in landscape, right? And so it kind of clips it when it needs to clip it, and it just flows when it needs to be wider, for example. But yeah, you can absolutely apply other transforms directly to the path and the shape. There's certainly, things to learn about how to lay out shapes well and to make sure they look good when you do that. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of blogs. We're going to do a more in-depth blog, and we may end up spending some more time doing an in-depth, some live streams and things like that to go deeper into it, because it's so powerful and it's a really gnarly, deep rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
Linux support for Maui, if you don't mind, I'll answer that one. So right now it's GDK Sharp 2, which is what we have for Linux. And so and I say we have, it's community contributed and supported. So is that what we need in .NET 6? Is that the right way to go, or should it be upgraded to GDK Sharp 3? What does that mean? There's so many questions out there surrounding it. So it's not that we don't want to do Linux. It's just that it's lower on the list of priorities in terms of what we can focus on and handle, or what we choose. I don't know the right way to say it. You know what I'm saying? Certainly, if it's something that is valuable and useful to you and for your business, please contribute to it and help us know how we want to move it forward. It's wonderful to have there as a piece, but in terms of what we're going to be focusing on to ship for V1 of Maui, it is going to be Android, iOS, Mac OS, and Windows. That's alphabetical intentionally. I don't want anybody to draw conclusions about prioritization from that. But we want to make sure we deliver the best experience we can for those four. And for other platforms that have use cases, like I said, and I highlighted this in the pull request, macOS, WPF, Linux is getting them as well on the back of community contributions. So, and the great thing about community contributions is, if it's useful to you, you have the ability to pull those in, and we will not block them.
Sweet. And David, what's going on with .NET 5 and .NET 6 and Xamarin support? What's the timeline there?
Right. So Xamarin, iOS, Android, Forms, et cetera, is running on Mono as it always has through the .NET 5 wave. So we're doing the build system, the debugging and things like that we can based on the .NET 6 work. Because if you think about it, when .NET 6 goes GA and we branch shortly thereafter .NET 6, it's based on .NET 5. So we're already doing the work to make sure that our on-ramp to .NET 6 is what it needs to be. But in terms of where you're going to get the stable releases from us, it's going to be on .NET 6. So when, for example, iOS 14 drops later this year as a stable gold master, whatnot, and when Android 11 is stable and ships, which, by the way, the Android 11 preview is coming out in just a few weeks. So it's on the way. And so when all those things ship, you're going to be using the same .NET you're using today. And then when we get to next fall, then we'll be looking at how we make that transition into .NET 6 as smoothly as possible. So yeah, that's kind of where it is. So really, the TLDR is .NET 5 does not have Xamarin. So you'll use what you have today, but .NET 6 will. And so it's just a lot of things to have happen in the midst of a pandemic. And we want to make sure that we can deliver it at the quality we want to deliver it at.
Yeah, and really not much is going to change with .NET 6. It's just that we're kind of merging everything so that it's easier for us to maintain, it's easier for us to improve and iterate on. It's easier for you to get started kind of with all the things instead of just some of the things in Mono, some of the things in .NET. So it's going to be very exciting. Will the Standup.Forms API remain the same in MAUI, David?
So that's a really good question. I would encourage you to go up to the .NET MAUI GitHub repo and check out the specifications that have been posted, read the README, read the FAQ. So there are going to be some breaking changes introduced. Mostly it's around removing obsoletes, so stuff that has been hanging around and is still supported and we just need to get rid of. So we want to do some house cleaning there. There are some cleanup of APIs, for example, min width request, min height request, max min. But all of those things we're going to first of all fix the implementation on because it's been kind of wonky and doesn't really work the way a lot of developers expect them to work. And we're also going to clean up the naming. Let's see, what are some other examples? Oh, layout options. We have that fill and expand, and it's everywhere, but it really only applies to the children of a stack layout. And otherwise, everywhere else, it makes no difference. So we're going to clean that up and make it an attached property on the children of stack layout, similar to the attached properties you have today on Flex layout. So some of those are the API changes. Probably the most fundamental and really exciting thing that we're doing in .NET MAUI is changing how we do renderers. And so when we look at what we're learning from the mobile Blazor bindings experiment and the comment experiment is that in order to make our renderers more useful across a variety of ways of doing software, we should re-envision that. So we're going to make them all super thin. We're going to introduce property mappers instead of the way that we do passing through of properties today. There's going to be less or no dependency on property change notifications. So what we're hoping to see is a significant improvement in terms of app size, memory, as well as performance. And one that I'm really excited about, and if you have ever done any kind of extending a control in the comment experiment, using those property mappers, it's just a couple lines of code to do a modification. You'll never need to write a renderer again. So very excited about that. What does that mean for existing custom renderers? Because we know that we've got plenty of those that will need to come forward in Xamarin.Forms. So we have ideas around that in order to provide a shim layer, a compatibility layer, and we'll be working on that. So long story short, there are some changes. We think that they're all high customer value, high developer value changes, and address a lot of the longer standing concerns around Xamarin.Forms. I will say this, I ran an experiment recently where I was doing some analysis on app sizes. And by utilizing more of the comment style instead of the Xamarin.Forms style, I saw a significant drop in app size. Now, some of that is just literally framework size. But I think that we have some wins there as well. So very excited about that. I see some comments in the chat, excited about performance. Me too. Cool. We introduced fast renders a while back. That was on the path, right? But in order to make the deep cuts to really see those benefits more fully across the whole product, we needed to make a jump like .NET MAUI. So it's not radically different, but it's different enough that when we'll provide guides and all that sort of thing. We're not making all the changes that are being introduced and proposed are up on GitHub. And so that we want to make sure we have all these conversations and we don't just bilaterally, that's probably not the right word, but it sounds really good, make decisions unilaterally. That's what it is, unilaterally. That's when one person makes a decision, when bilateral means we're working together, right? Come on, you all were in college recently.
I like it.
Oh.
Good words. All right, Jake just froze and then came back to life and he's frozen again, but that's okay because it's 2. It's time to go. Everybody enjoy, if you're in the US, enjoy the 3-day weekend. If you're not in the US, enjoy the weekend that starts in 24 hours or less. It's been a pleasure seeing you all in the chat. If you have more questions, I know there were a bunch rolling in that we didn't get to. Grab us on Twitter. Grab us wherever else you can find us. GitHub discussions. So cool. And we'll see you in the first week of August. Looks like August 6th.
Good job hosting, Maddie. Good job. Bring in the energy.
Thanks. I had a lot of caffeine before this. All right. See you all soon, everybody. I'm going to try and switch this away now. Bye.
Bye.